Hello and welcome to another episode of C-Suite. This is the place where we get to have a CEO chat. And yes, today I am super excited to have none other than Dr. Kimberly Grant Bynoe. Yes, she's lived all over the globe, currently living in Dubai, but I'm excited that she stopped by. She paused for the cause to have a CEO chat with Shawanna Kennedy, your host today. So let's go ahead and bring Dr. Kimberly in. Hello, hello,
Hello,
hello.
greetings.
Excited to see you, and I'm glad that you stopped by the C-suite to have a conversation, a CEO chat with me, because I know people want to hear from this award-winning international speaker, right? Economic developer, Dr. Kimberly Grant Bynoe. Yes, I am excited. And then when, of course, preparing even for our interview, I said, woo, I finally get to talk to her because you in another time zone, it may be our times and all of that come into play, but I'm so glad that God have aligned our times and we're able to have
Amen.
a conversation today. So I want to know, Dr. Kimberly, let's jump right in it. What inspired you, besides to be an entrepreneur, but to take that to the marketplace? I gotta know that.
Wow. Well, Shawanna, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for your persistence and, uh, inviting me to be a part of your CEO chat. I'm honored always when God opens up a door. Well, it was a calling, actually. I believe that entrepreneurship is a divine calling from God. I worked in corporate America. I worked in Wall Street in the financial district in New York City. I landed that job actually coming right out of high school. I was invited to be a part of a temporary program and just found favor. And I ended up working in the financial district for places such as American Express, Merrill Lynch, Shearson Lehman Brothers, all of the major Fortune 500 companies. And someone coming out of high school, 19, 20 years old, landing an opportunity like that, I didn't know that it was a part of God's divine plan in bringing me into the financial industry. And that is where I started as an executive assistant. And it's so interesting that your broadcast is talking to C-suite executives because as an executive assistant, that is who I worked for. People like Kenneth Chenault, who is actually the president and CEO of American Express now, but at the time he was not. And so when I go back and I look at my journey, I see the divine plans of God in leading me into entrepreneurship because that was my inspiration. I wanted to be a CEO. I wanted to start my own company. I wanted to run my own business. As a matter of fact, I'll share a little short story to answer this question. I remember one of the C-suite executives, he at the time working in Wall Street, we didn't take the subways when it was time to deliver something. They would always send you like a car. And I never forget when I had to deliver a package. I worked downtown, so I had to deliver this package uptown. And I remember when I ordered the car, who knew that this top of the line Mercedes would come to pick me up, right? And now I'm 20 years old. And at the time, this was in the like the late 80s. So it's a couple of years ago. So that was big for me. That was really big for me. And so I get in this car and I'm driving uptown to go pick up this package for the C-suite executive. And I said, I remember saying this, my God, I could do this. I could live this life. Like, I like this. And so I went, I got the package. We headed back downtown. And I said, Lord, one day I would like to be able to be a CEO and be an executive of a company and have these perks and be able to do that. So that's how I got started. I got started in having a passion and a love as well as a calling from God to go into entrepreneurship. And so the journey began from coming from out of high school and then just really having more of a burning desire with God really showing me more of the blueprint as to what he wanted me to do beyond the four walls of the church.
Well, see, I know that you are definitely a woman of the marketplace because before meeting you, I know the importance of marketplace, but the economic piece about it, I have to be honest, until I ran across you, Dr. Kimberly, I never heard, especially one of us, speaking so much about the importance and of our place in the marketplace and in economics. Thinking about that, because you talk about that, you represent that, you host events, you were speaking all over the globe in regards to that, and I think that is amazing. Where do you see it even possibly going in this next 5 years?
Wow. Well, it's again, I started out from high school, and I just believe that that was to give me a taste for entrepreneurship. I didn't come necessarily from a family of entrepreneurs. When I look back now, I believe my father was an entrepreneur because I remember him opening up his first business in Brooklyn. It was called the North Carolina Country Store.
Mm.
And so, he opened that up, and all of a sudden, I said, wow, but I didn't know the word entrepreneurship because you remember we're in the 80s, and I didn't
Yeah.
have anyone in my family who really was into entrepreneurship. I just knew I had a desire. I wanted to start a beauty salon. So I went to a school. It was called Wilford Academy at the time for training for cosmetologists.
Hmm.
And when I got through the program, I discovered, and this is how many will discover really what your passion is and what your niche is. I realized that, okay, I may had a love for the beauty industry, but it wasn't necessarily hair. I didn't like doing the hair. And so I went through that process of touching and just really trying to discover what my passion, what my purpose was. And it was in 1999 when I heard God speak really clearly, and I was working at the time in corporate America, and I had changed from Wall Street, and I was more midtown. And the Lord actually called me out of corporate America, called me off of my job into full-time parenting. I was called to be a full-time stay-at-home mom. And
Hmm.
at first, it was exciting because I had the opportunity to spend it with my family,
Hmm.
and also to be a part of raising my children. And so at the time, I had just had my son, and then Jasmine, she came along. It was then after, I have two children. I have a son and I have a daughter. And so they're both adults now. And so I remember making that decision. And we were in a financial position, my ex husband now, but we were in a financial position where we were able to make that decision with me staying home as a full time mom. Was it easy? No, because I was this independent woman who made her
Right.
own money and now goes out of corporate America to be a full time stay at home mom. That means one of the incomes, was taken away. And
Hmm.
so I
Hmm.
felt the
Hmm.
burden. This was just my own inner self. I felt the burden of not own and really depending on my husband's income to take care of our family. And he was able to do that, but it was just something in me, that independent woman who was used to having her own and making
Yeah.
her own money.
Yeah.
So God had to break me in a season where he humbled me. First of all, and I didn't realize he was aligning and establishing our home. And that became the first ministry. There is an alignment. Ministry first begins at home. It
Yes,
starts
it
with
does.
family.
It
And
does.
if family is not in order, and if things are not aligned with your family, then it will affect the business or the ministry that God is calling you to.
Now, you know what? Right there, while you're saying that, I like where you just said that, talking about how when you bring in the family dynamic, because of course, being an entrepreneur, a business owner, especially someone in your that's been blessed and privileged to do things globally, that's already a lot in itself. But then when you think
Yes,
about bringing in the family, talking about children, I recall,
yes,
see, look, some things that people don't know about me. I too went to beauty school. I too worked in a beauty salon. Look, but when my outgo was more than my income, I had to let that go. I too
absolutely.
also understand about even being with at that time even a single mother with two children. and saying, right, my kids were basically doing a lot of things by themselves or trying to set up things and having the whole latchkey. Look, I have 80 kids as well. See,
Right.
so experiencing that, but then still, like you said, having what you believe God is still tugging and pulling or navigating. Because some of the things that I did, especially back then, the 80s, the the 90s, through that, it is, I believe God was positioning for, even like you said, at such a time as this. And it's
Yes.
crazy when I think about it. Well, it's his will, so I'm not going to say crazy, because God is definitely not crazy. He has a sense of humor with regards to saying, no, I need you to go through these things, so that I can refine you for what I know that I have for you later in life, for the big,
Absolutely.
for the bigger picture. And when I see that, to even know, to know you, and then to know when you made the move from being here to say, because of course we know things happen that cause you to say, God is allowing me to, then now I need to go away to do these things so that I can restore,
Yes.
so that I can
Yes.
rest, so that I can
Yes.
reflect, be thankful,
Yes.
and see what is the next thing he has for me. How was that? If somebody is thinking about, she's saying she's global, she does this, she went from the United States all the way over to now residing, and she just come by to say hi to us over here. Uh, how is that? Because I know you do even promote other people who potentially could want to do something like that. Let's talk about that, because we cannot not make people aware of where you actually live. I mean, you talk about it, and going from, look, from the penthouse to the palace, and what that experience, to know, to say, I don't want to go all the way down to saying, pork and beans to some, caviar. But you get the point that I'm making as an entrepreneur, and seeing how God can shift us in such a mighty way when we listen to what he is saying to us as women and men, in this in saying, I want to be an entrepreneur, saying I want to be a business owner, and knowing that even from right in your local establishment and community, you can still affect the world. You are affecting the
Absolutely.
world. You're the world. What would you have to say about that?
There was a global mandate on my life when I first started my ministry, my marketplace ministry, which is now this year, actually this month, is going to be 24 years. And so I'm not new to this. And as someone say, but I'm true to this. God
Yeah.
called me into this, and I know that it's a part of my divine calling and purpose. And when the Lord called me to marketplace ministry, there was not many out there looking like me. I just thought I was rebellious. I just thought that, and that's what he would make you think. He would make you think that you're so totally off, and really, it's not. Really, what God is using, he's using innovation, and he's using creativity.
Yes.
Something definitely innovative, and it was something that was needed at the time within, we call the body of Christ, we call the kingdom. And so when I answered the call to entrepreneurship, and went beyond the four walls of the church, people thought that I was crazy, because everything housed within the building of a church. And
Yeah.
I knew that it was broader for me than that, but there was no model. I met people who had liked vision, and I surrounded myself with them.
Yeah.
Many of them are very advanced and further in this movement, and it's called the Seven Mountain Mandate, which is governing, and which is subduing and really taking mountains influence, and bringing it into culture. And those seven mountains is usually like business, arts and entertainment, government, family, religion. And I may be missing a few right now, but there are seven mandates. Mine was actually business and economics, because it was something that I was already doing. And so
Yeah.
this was actually the confirmation for me. And the name of my ministry is the International Dream Association, which is a 501c3 faith-based community economic development corporation, which got birthed out of New York in 1999, with a mandate to go beyond the four walls of the church and into the marketplace and influence culture through the mountain of business and economics. No one heard of that when I started in 1999. People thought I was crazy.
That is
People,
powerful.
all
That is
they knew was corporate America and the workplace. And God was using this outreach beyond the wall to reach those people who may not necessarily come into our congregations or come into our churches on Sunday. There is something so beyond the 9 to 5 window, and you have more outreach. And even with the name was not the International Dream Team Christian Association. It was the National Dream Team Christian Association. When we were deciding on a name, a prophetic voice came and said, I see this going global.
Yeah.
And so people don't realize that before you actually see a thing, you have to see a thing. There's a difference between our peripheral vision and our spiritual eyes. Okay.
Yes.
And so and that's where I get, the prophetic word as eagle eyes. You got to be able to see a thing. And so I knew that I was international before the name. That was just confirmation that we would go global. It was not manifested yet. And I'm 24 years, the prophetic word that was released on my ministry 24 years ago. People don't realize that entrepreneurship don't happen overnight. It's a journey. It's a process. It's a development process. And so I had to go through the maturing. I had to go through the pruning. I had to go through all of that, the process to get here. And so when you emerge, which the Lord gave me that word for this year, 2023 being the year of emergence. So when you emerge and when you arise, people are like, who is she? Where does she come from? Well, I've been in the making behind the scenes like David for 24 years. I've been tending to sheep. I've been tending to other leaders. I had to see the leaders' vision come to pass before mine. Sometimes you got to sow into making other people's dream and visions come true for yours. And so it was through my experience that I had in February of 2021 when I lost my husband unexpectedly.
Now, wait, we talk about with CEO and thinking about what that looks like, because you have a lot, and that's heavy. And I know I see where you're about to turn it, because part of that journey is sometimes we will experience loss, and we will experience loss in a major, to some, an earth-shattering, what would appear, to be earth-shattering.
Yes.
And I do want to know, because we talk about it, it is good because it has those highs, it has those lows, but there are sometimes things happen to really literally make us feel like we've been knocked off our feet.
Absolutely.
And when thinking about that did cause another major shift, because I know God has taken you on several shifts in your life.
Oh, He has. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, He has. And the first shift, to answer your question was, He uprooted us from a familiar place. And I'm a native of New York. I was born and raised, been there most of my life, was married for 25 years, divorced, became single for a couple of years, launched my business and opened up offices. We had 2 offices in New York. And that is where I met my husband, just like Ruth. He found me. He found me being about my father's business. And, there are so many different aspects of this journey to my life and being in marketplace ministry and being called to business and economics. It's definitely a calling. And it's something that God wants to read it as a tool to reach further beyond the walls of a building. He wants to take us to the four pillars of the earth. He wants to take us to global. And many times, and it's okay if you have a local mindset. Everyone is not called. Well, we're all called as believers to go ye into all the world preach the good news in the gospel, but there was some that has to stay local. And so, everyone is not mandated to actually go certain places. There are some that will have a local ministry, and then there are some who will answer the call to go globally. And that was always my mandate, was to go global. And so, we'll get into how
Yeah,
I
because
ended up.
you said a few. You said
We'll talk about how I ended up in Dubai, but it started local. It started in my community.
But you
I
said a few things. I want to pull that out because you use the term mindset. And when we're thinking about CEOs and a CEO, what that looks like, because a lot of people carry that as a part of their title, but it really comes with such a responsibility. And you
Yes.
talk about not only nationally, internationally, but you mentioned local and a local mindset. We got to
Yes.
talk about the mindset for just a minute.
Yes.
I need you to talk
Yes.
about the mindset because
Yes.
there's so many people who want the glory of what they believe that comes with being a boss, with being
Right.
a business owner, with being an entrepreneur, with carrying a name. But I just need you. Come on, Dr. Kimberly, talk a little bit
Yes. Well,
about
it
that
all comes
mindset.
with the renewing of your mind. You're
Yeah,
transformed from the renewing of your mind. And so it's a mindset. And if you just believe that you're not to go no further than your local community, then work your community. I just knew that for me. I worked my community because it says, first, Judea, you go community, Samaria, then the utmost parts of the earth. So it's going to start local. That's your training ground. That's your training for reigning, I would say. That's where it's to equip you and prepare you for the global work,
yeah,
because you cannot go global without first starting local. You have to start local. And so I worked my community. I had 2 offices in New York, in the community, working my faith-based community development corporation. And so I built relationships with community leaders. I built relationships with federal government. I built relationships with state and local. It provided me an opportunity to build relationships, and which landed me actually a position in working in government. I worked with the New York State Senate for a couple of years. And so I worked that helped me to fund my vision, to help me to fund International Dream Team Christian Association, because it was still within the community. There's nothing wrong with working a job. Some people may have that, but I feel that you go there and it's not a job that can fully pay you for what God wants you to do. I believe he provides seed to the sower, and I
yeah,
believe it's an opportunity to go and get your seed, to be able to plant it into the vision. Because first, before you make people believe what you're doing, you got to first believe what God has called you to
that
do.
is so huge.
So
Yeah,
you have to first fund your vision to make
yes,
other
yes.
people to believe what you're trying to accomplish. And that's where Habakkuk comes in writing the vision and
Making it,
making it plain so
yeah,
those who read it can help you to run with it. You got to first believe. It all
yeah.
starts within the mind. First of all, whatever God shows us is much bigger than us. And that's
Thank
where the
you. Yeah,
frustration comes in, because it's a process. His vision is too big. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes years.
yeah,
Some
yeah,
people have left here and it has continued through their legacy. But it's everlasting. It's
yeah.
everlasting. So I always say, enjoy the process.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I need to know because you talked about all of that. Now I do. When you think about it, we were getting ready to hit on the point of sometimes when you experiencing all of this about a time when you really were knocked off your feet along this journey of being a business owner, a global speaker, an entrepreneur, a person that truly believes in building and helping other people build their dreams.
Yes.
And you talk about that experience and how God has allowed you to once again, because we know you talk a lot about the eagle and the rising of the eagle, but how
Yes.
where it felt like that eagle took that swoop down into that valley low.
Flip them wings, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but sometimes, he have to rub us. You know what I know about the eagle, and they have to rub up against the rock to loosen some of those feathers that need to, it's because something else is happening. Talk to us about what that was when you went low, but God, of course, now you're definitely ascending once again, and I'm excited. So
Amen.
talk to us a little bit about
Amen.
that before we get out of here.
Absolutely. Well, part of the journey was it was time for us to relocate. We'll start with sharing a brief part of that, and then it was a time where both of us had our own home,
Mhm.
and it was time for us to merge together. And so we were looking for a home actually in New York. All it was like we just could not find what we were looking for, and so I believe God used that for us to look beyond. And I had desire to go to Atlanta. And my husband reminded me of that actually. He said, my late husband reminded me of that. And he said, did you think about Atlanta? Now I knew it was God because I never thought that he would ever relocate outside of New York. Born and
Mhm.
raised, been there most of his life, never thought. I said, wow, really? And so I began to look, and we realized that it was God that was at this time. It started, he was enlarging our territory. So he took
Yeah.
us to region. He took us to Atlanta, Georgia. And that is where we purchased our home together, living in Atlanta. And we were able to do some work there. And it was 6 years. It was 6 years. And we were getting ready to launch my next business venture, which is Economic Hub. And February 26th of 2021, my husband was sitting at the dinner table and was getting ready to fix him dinner like a normal day. He had not been feeling well for a couple of days. And next thing I knew, he shut his eyes. And so he called the ambulance to come, to take him. And to be honest, we didn't think anything of it. We thought that we were just going to go hospital to meet him while they were doing tests to find out what was going on, because now mind you, we were still in a pandemic. We had just come from out of the pandemic from
Mhm.
that hit our nation from 2020. Now we're in 2021, so we're
Mhm.
still operating through some of the guidelines where I couldn't go in the ambulance with. He had to
Mm.
go on his own, and so that was already a challenge for me, but we had to wait. And February 26th of 2021, my life would change forever. We got the call to come to the hospital, and we did. We packed a bag because we went thinking that he was going to stay overnight,
Yes, yes.
and didn't know that we were going to be met by the doctor and the chaplain who placed us in this small room
Mm.
to come to share the news that changed my life forever. We worked on your husband the best that we could. Unfortunately, he did not make it. And so we were devastated, quite naturally. I was devastated. The first defense of my emotions was I was mad with God
Yeah, yeah.
because we had prayed, you shall live and declare the works of the Lord. And so I had to get through that process of being angry with God because I knew that if anyone could save him, God could. And
Yeah.
so I was very upset
Oh,
for some
wow.
time, dealing with the grieving, dealing with that disappointment from God. And then finally God dealt with me. He said, "Will you trust me?" I never forget, I was sitting on my bed and I was broken. And he said, "Will you trust me?" And with sobbing, with tears in my eyes, I just felt a release to trust God again. It
Mm.
must have just welled up out of me because I was really, really hurt and disappointed. And I said, "Yes, God, I would trust you." He said, "Well, if you trust me, your next could be now." And I didn't really know what that meant, but I knew it did something to my spirit. And I knew that, you know, faith is the now. We don't realize that we talk
Mm.
about tomorrow, but faith is really the actual, it is the now. And God doesn't operate on tomorrow. He operates on the now. And so
Yeah.
now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
Yeah.
And so if I trusted God, he was going to bring me into my now, my next now. And that means he had to really do some things quickly. And so it started on a journey. I decided to sell our estate in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And that was in November. And I was asked to speak out of the country in Turkey. And that's even a whole
Yeah.
situation
I'm telling you,
that
that's
then,
because you have such a powerful and insightful story. I already know. Look, I already need to look. Sign me up, number one, for the pre-sales of your book. I
there's a
know. I
book.
already know. I already
There's a
know.
book.
Yeah.
And so it led me to a place where I was asked to speak in Turkey, actually. And it was during the holiday season, which would have been our first holiday without my husband, my late husband.
Mhm.
And we didn't know what we were doing because it was so new, it was so different.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
didn't realize to the day that I was scheduled to speak that it was actually Thanksgiving. So
Mhm.
much was going on. I wasn't into, the holidays and what was going on. I was just living from
Mhm.
day to day.
Yeah.
And it was God with a chuckle. He said, okay, you didn't know what you were going to do for the holiday? Okay, I'm going to bring you to Turkey for Turkey Day. And I laughed. That was like, he feels me, right?
Yeah.
And it was after that trip, we were heading back to the States. And all of a sudden, God began to take me on a journey. He said, no, I want to begin to take you. I want to begin. Did I not say that your next could be now? Well, I always dreamed of traveling. As a matter of fact, it was part of my plans. I was just speaking to my late husband the Wednesday before his transition. Babe, why don't we sell the house? Because there was only two of us in this
Wow.
house, and let's just travel, right?
Wow.
And
Wow.
so it was the Wednesday before his transition. And God answered that. He said, okay, I want you to go here and I want you to go there. And he began to take me on this traveling journey. I
Yeah.
ended up in Greece, which Greece then led me to Dubai. And when we went to Dubai, we thought we were going to be there for the holiday season. I thought that that was
Mhm.
God answering my prayer for where were we going to be for the holiday, because I had never spent the holidays outside of my country, outside of my family. And so that's how we ended up in Dubai. We ended up in Dubai because I had relationships there. We went there, so we thought, for the holiday. And that was in December when we checked into a God would later lead me to, called the Haptu Palace. So
Wow.
people who know my story know that I'm a Joseph. And
Yeah.
so I went through much to be where God has now placed me. And so to end up in a palace, I was in total awe of God. And that is where our residence became, in Dubai, for the duration of our time that we were there. And so he took me, he said, this is a modern day story. And it's going to talk about my experience and my journey. So God began to take me on a journey. And
Yeah.
we thought we were leaving February of 2022. And we didn't know that God would set us up where we became residents of Dubai, investors, and a resident of Dubai. And we're still trying to comprehend it, because remember, we were on the journey and we were going through this. And so when you're going through a process, you don't really realize what you're in, and you don't really
Yeah.
realize what you're doing. And so it was later that God would begin to show me all that he had done. He had to take me away.
Seeing
Yes.
all these amazing places that God was allowing you to shine. And even still, even right now, still doing the doggone thing, still shining, still, I believe you recently even won another award, right? It said award
Well, it
winning.
was it was presented for speaking at an event here in Dubai, in Dubai, and it was called the She Awards Global, hosted by my sister out of Shola, who we were honorees last year while we were in Dubai. And this year she asked me if I would be one of her speakers. And I was so honored and humbled by that. But we opened up offices. Our international offices is here in Dubai. And we're planning to officially launch at our gathering of Eagles Women's Economic Empowerment and Leadership Summit, which has officially gone global this year, will be officially going global this year. We had our inaugural, which you were part of in 2019 in Atlanta, Georgia. And now God wants us to bring it global. And so we will be officially launching that in Dubai, as well as launching our new company and unveiling that in the next couple of days, actually. And
I love it.
yeah, so we have KGB Global Project Management Services here in Dubai, where we will be actually, we'll share that at a later time. We'll be servicing those who have a desire to expand globally, international trade, and do business outside of the States. And so we're blessed and we're excited and we're looking forward to that. And, again, people don't realize that it's a process.
Yeah.
We had to get licenses here in Dubai. It took us a process to do that, which led us to get our residence visa as an investor here. Then we had to learn the culture. We had to learn. So the year allowed the culture of Dubai. It had me to learn, everything that I needed to begin to prepare for this launch and to prepare for this moment. And it's exciting.
It is exciting.
It's exciting. Yes.
Whoa, what a mighty God. What a mighty God.
And what a mighty God. What a mighty God.
What a privilege and to be chosen, to know that you have all of this insight, what the inspiration that you have.
Wow.
Look, overseas connection. Look, all of the things that she does. So if you don't know her, you need to see that you definitely need to get to know her. Her coming on. So we want to thank you so much for sharing just a small part of your Joseph story, for just a small part of helping us to realize and understand, for those who sometimes may even forget that this journey will require what I'm so passionate about is understanding the good, the bad, the ugly of what it means to be a CEO. And that first part, of course, is I'm a woman of faith. You already know that. It's just to understand what he has, who he is, but what he has given us, what the call that he has over our life, and to what it is to impact the world, even if it's in your local community.
Yes.
So we know everybody is not called outside of we'll just say even their the state that they live in. But whatever that thing is, you can still be global right where you are. You could still be big right where you are. And to know that your next, she said it so beautifully, your next could be right now. Understanding that what faith is now. What is that now for you? What does that look like? Where are you at? That hopefully something that was said today that can help strengthen you on your journey, right? No matter where you are. So that, because there's things that we still have to do. It don't matter what we're doing. There's always more to be done, ways that we can continue to sharpen ourselves, to continue to empower, inspire others, to continue to what I say, we rise, we climb, we lift others as we're climbing. And that is part of what we are called to do. And I thank you so much, Dr. Kimberly Grant Bynoe, for pausing for the cause in your world to then just step back over into this time zone to just spend a little bit of time with Shawanna Kennedy. You know, I love you with the love of a sister.
I love you. I love you.
I appreciate the time that we've had to be a part of each other's lives, and how that you definitely inspire me, give me things to hope for, to be able to do all of that, because God is he's just so amazing. And I'm grateful for our time here. And I love you. I thank you for being a part of what God has deemed as part of my journey for this season, is to doing a show like this, saying, C-suite CEO chat, because people need to know what it look and sound like, because some people can't pick up the phone and have the conversation and say, well, what is going on with them? What does that look like? Right. And to be able to just pause and listen to someone with such insight as yourself. It is an honor and a privilege, and I so
Thank you.
appreciate you. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me here
You're
on
so
C-Suite.
welcome.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you,
So
thank you, thank you, thank you. Hey, everybody, we want to thank again our special guest for today, Dr. Kimberly Grant Bynoe, all the way from Dubai. That's right. I'm excited. So please make sure if you're not following her, go ahead and follow her. We're going to make sure you have all of her links so that you can connect with her. And stay tuned. So make sure you're following us so you can stay tuned, so you can join us right here again for our next episode of C-Suite, a CEO chat with who? Your host, Shawanna Kennedy. Bye for now.